Here are the top stories for today, January 28, 2020. Malacanang said the scrapping of VFA is a studied response against the United States. The Justice Department is hoping to file charges against the so-called ninja cops this week. A woman who just gave birth in Surigao is appealing to CPP-NPA to release her husband. And Malacanang joins Filipino fans in mourning the death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement is said to be a studied response against the United States for meddling in Philippine internal affairs. Lade Cabagani gives us the details.
Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo on Monday said Duterte's decision was prompted by an accumulation of a series of disrespectful acts made by some American senators against the Philippine government and its officials. Panelo said the cancellation of the visa of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Duterte's close ally, was the last straw that broke the camel's back.
It was an accumulation, a series of disrespectful acts by some of the U.S. senators. One, first demanding the release of a senator who is lawfully detained, to our mind and to the President's mind. That is an intrusion and an insult to the judiciary system of this country.
Besides the cancellation of De La Rosa's U.S. visa, Panelo named 3 other reasons which prompted the President's decision to cancel the VFA. One of these reasons is the repeated calls of some American senators for the release of detained Senator Lila de Lima. Panelo said Duterte also frowned upon the U.S. Senate resolution condemning alleged violations of human rights, which he claimed are lies peddled by Duterte's critics and detractors. The third reason was the introduction of an amendment to the State and Foreign Operations Appropriations section of the budget of the U.S. budget program. Panelo explained that among others, under the VFA, the Philippines cannot assume jurisdiction over crimes committed by U.S. military personnel unless particular crime is of particular importance to the Philippines.
So under the VFA, they cannot even be arrested or detained. They cannot even be tried in religious and military courts. They're exempted from the requirements on visa and passport. To top it all, the U.S. aircrafts and vessels can move without restriction in the Philippines. Unrestricted movement.
Panelo, however, assured that should the VFA be terminated, the Philippines will still have jurisdiction over U.S. Marine Joseph Katz Pemberton for killing Filipino transgender woman Jennifer Lauda in 2014. Panelo, who is also the chief presidential legal counsel, required the U.S. to explain the reason for the barring of officials involved in De Lima's detention and for De La Rosa's visa being cancelled. He also shrugged off the suggestion of former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario for the President to accept the invitation of U.S. President Donald Trump to attend the Southeast Asian Leaders Summit in Las Vegas, Nevada this March.
The President knows what he's doing. He doesn't need advice from those who have failed in their term as government officials, especially from the one who lost the West Philippine Sea to the Chinese government.
Panelo said the issues in relation to bilateral agreements between the Philippines and U.S. do not need to be brought up during the U.S.-ASEAN Summit since they could be discussed at another time. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Lade Cabagani.
Meanwhile, Communications Secretary Martin Andanar shared Panelo's sentiment stressing that the basis for Duterte's decision is the continuous disrespect on Philippine sovereignty and its judicial system. While the relationship between the two presidents is well, Andanar mentioned that the sovereignty of the two countries should be respected. He said, by terminating the BFA, Duterte is sending the message that the Philippines is an independent country. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara on Monday said his office has been directed to include the implications of the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement in their study. Guevara earlier said the memo sought by the palace would only deal with the procedure for termination, but they just have been instructed to expand the scope of their study to include a preliminary impact assessment on the possible termination of the VFA. Guevara explained the legal formalities were easier to determine and that the time frame for the termination depends on how soon the cabinet cluster concerned on the matter can convene. President Duterte on Friday ordered the start of the process of termination of the VFA following the cancellation of the U.S. visa of retired top cop and now Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Duterte warned the United States government that he will scrap the agreement if the cancellation of De La Rosa's visa is not rectified within a month. Senate President Vicente Soto III said the Senate cannot review or even petition President Duterte's decision to scrap the government's Visiting Forces Agreement with the United States. In an interview, Soto said the Senate can only discuss the planned VFA abrogation either in a caucus or a hearing with the purpose of coming up with a unified statement. He stressed, though, that any unified statement that will come out would have no bearing on the president's decision. Soto also refused to give comments on Duterte's move to scrap the VFA because he wanted to retain the independence of the three co-equal branches of government. He said it would also be better for the U.S. to review Duterte's perspective on his decision. Meanwhile, Senator Panfilo Lacson echoed Soto's sentiment, saying the purpose of the planned review on the VFA's abrogation should be clarified first, lest the Senate could be seen as unnecessarily encroaching on the authority of the executive. Lacson pointed out that the role of the Senate is to ratify, concur, or reject a bilateral agreement and nothing more. Like Soto, Lacson said he will not give any advice on Duterte's move to terminate the VFA. Amid the scare of the dreaded novel coronavirus, the DOH maintains that the country is free from the disease. However, measures are already taking place in other parts of the country. People are also on the lookout, becoming wary of tourists suspected of carrying the disease. Teresa Montemayor has the report.
In Manila, the local government said there is no confirmed case of the novel coronavirus. This after a Chinese national was hospitalized due to fever and cough. The patient is identified as a 27-year-old male who was working at the Philippine offshore gaming operator. Dr. Arnold Pangan of the Manila Health Department said the patient is diagnosed with community-acquired pneumonia and is negative on the history of travel to Wuhan, China, nor exposure to a host or positive case. Mayor Isko Moreno called on the public to refrain from sharing unverified information online and offline to avoid panic. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs is establishing emergency protocols for Filipinos in Wuhan City as the 2019 novel coronavirus spreads fast in China and other countries. While there's no update yet as to whether repatriation will be implemented soon, Filipinos in the affected areas are advised to avoid crowded places, use masks and gloves, and practice proper hygiene in order to reduce exposure to and transmission of said virus. In Camiguin, a patient suspected of having been infected with the novel coronavirus has also been tested negative. Camiguin is considered as one of the country's prime tourist destinations, with thousands of local and foreign tourists all year round. In Zamboanga, 2 public hospitals have already been identified as treatment centers in case the novel coronavirus reaches the southern city port. These are the government-owned Zamboanga City Medical Center and the Mindanao Central Sanitarium General Hospital. This measure is brought about by the announcement of Philippine Airlines that it will serve the Zamboanga, Malaysia route via Kota Kinabalu starting March this year. The dreaded virus has already reached Malaysia and other countries. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Still to come, the Justice Department is hoping to file charges against the so-called ninja cops this week. And the CBCP says calamity should not be seen as God's form of punishment. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ito ang Duterte on Duty. Ulat sa ginagawa ng Presidente. January 4, Sabado, Quezon City. Dumalo si Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte sa Change of Command Ceremony ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. January 6, Lunes, Malacanang. Pinirmahan ng Pangulo ang 2020 General Appropriations Act o ang 4.1 trillion national budget para sa taong 2020. Pinangunahan niya ang 45th Cabinet Meeting na ginanap sa Aguinaldo State Dining Room. January 7, Martes, Malacanang. Iginawad ni Pangulong Duterte ang Order of National Scientist Award kay Dr. Emil Javier bilang pagkilala sa natatanging kontribusyon nito sa larangan ng siyensya at teknolohiya.
The whole nation owes its deepest gratitude to Dr. Javier for his promising contributions to the scientific community, particularly in tropical agriculture research and copra production. Your leadership at the Institute of Plant Breeding advanced the production of high-yielding crops and disease-resistant varieties in the Philippines and in Asia, paving the way to better nourishment and improved quality of life for our people.
Sa isang interview ay sinabi ng Pangulo na nagpadala na siya ng opisyal upang siguruhin ang kaligtasan ng mga Pinoy sa Middle East sa gitna ng namumuong tensyon sa rehiyon.
I have sent Secretary Mamao, is a Maranao, is a cabinet member. I've sent him to both Tehran and in Baghdad, if we can make it, to talk to the leaders about the plight of the Filipino workers.
Pinulong niya ang mga opisyal ng Philippine Fiber Industry Development Authority at National Irrigation Administration. January 8, Miyerkules, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ng Pangulo ang mga bagong talagang government officials. Nanumpa rin si newly appointed Supreme Court Associate Justice Samuel Garland. January 10, Biyernes, Pigkawayan, Cotabato. Pinangunahan ni Pangulong Duterte ang pamamahagi ng 58 million pesos agricultural assistance para sa mga magsasaka sa Region 12. Ako po si Secretary Martin Antanar at ito ang Duterte on Duty. Abangan sa susunod na linggo ang mga gagawin ng Pangulo.
The Department of Justice, or DOJ, is hoping to file this week the charges against the 12 so-called ninja cops implicated in irregularities in the controversial Pampanga drug raid in 2013. Assistant State Prosecutor Josie Cristina Dugay on Monday said the charge sheets are now ready while the attachments are still being prepared for filing. The case will be filed before the Regional Trial Court and the Municipal Trial Court and cities in San Fernando, Pampanga. The DOJ will also file an endorsement before the Office of the Ombudsman for the separate case of graft against the former National Police Chief General Oscar Abayalde for failing to implement an order to penalize the police officers involved, led then by Police Major Rodney Baloyo IV. The panel also found probable cause to indict Baloyo and 11 other policemen for misappropriation, misapplication, or failure to account for the confiscated, seized, and/or surrendered dangerous drugs, planting of evidence, delay in the prosecution of drugs cases, qualified bribery, and causing an undue injury. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, urged the faithful to refrain from thinking of natural calamities as a form of punishment from God. In a pastoral message at the 120th Plenary Assembly in Manila, Davao Archbishop Romulo Valles said people suffer from disasters such as earthquakes and typhoons, not because God punishes them, but because of the nature of an imperfect world. Valles also assured people that God is with them during these times of trial. Valles said natural disasters are God's reminder to the people to take care of the environment. He also urged the faithful to show generosity and set aside wants and desires to be able to help others. On the other hand, Valles acknowledged the effort of the government in helping those affected by Taal volcano's eruption. He also commended the generosity of the Filipino people and those from other faiths to the victims of the January 12 eruption. And in our business news, the Philippines is no longer in the priority watch list of threats to the intellectual property rights of the European Union. European Commission released its biennial watch list that removed the Philippines from Priority 3 category. The Priority Counterfeit Watch List ranks economies based on the level of concern and threat to EU's IPR holders, with Priority 1 being the biggest threat and Priority 3 as the least concerning. The Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines said the Philippines was removed due to very few complaints received from stakeholders. It said IPR holders in EU decided to give more importance in looking after other countries that have an increasing potential to let loose on counterfeiting and piracy activities. The latest report reflects the success of the National Committee on Intellectual Property Rights to curb piracy and counterfeiting in the country. A woman has appealed through authorities in Surigao del Sur for the New People's Army, or NPA, to release her husband. Emeline Bolando Astudillo said her husband, Taloy Aguilo Astudillo, was seized by armed men believed to be communist rebels on December 3, 2019 in San Miguel town. Emeline issued the appeal as she gave birth to her youngest son at San Miguel Community Hospital. She said it would ease her pain if she would know the true condition of her husband. Datu Rico Maca, the Indigenous Peoples Mandatory Representative of San Miguel, said Emeline and her children left the village out of fear after her husband was abducted. Maca said Emeline only returned to their town to give birth. Maca said the local government of San Miguel has already provided Emeline with cash assistance, food, and other needs of her children, especially the newborn. Police and military forces are still searching for the victim.
Mag-istorya sila, gusto na yung uday pa istorya ko.
Nearly 15,000 beneficiaries of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program have been selected in the Ilocos region as the DSWD urges more poor households to apply for the program. More on this and other news from the provinces from Benj Bondo.
Nearly 15,000 households in the Ilocos region have been chosen as new beneficiaries of the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program through the Department of Social Welfare and Development. The new beneficiaries qualified based from the 2015 Listahanan Household Assessment, which aims to identify poor households. The ninth set of 4-piece beneficiaries are also eligible to receive cash grants for their children's education, their family's healthcare, among other subsidies from the national government. In Iloilo, PNP Chief General Archie Gamboa on Monday commended the police force and its partner agencies in keeping peace and order during the celebration of Dinagyang Festival this year. The police was able to achieve its target of 0 major incidents during the revelries, the highlight of which was celebrated on Sunday. In an awarding ceremony at the Freedom Grandstand, Gamboa extended his congratulations to the Security Task Group Dinagyang for a job well done. He also hailed the partnership with agencies including the Philippine Army, Philippine Red Cross, Bureau of Fire Protection, and the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. Meanwhile, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board in Region 10 warns that public utility vehicle operators who will not modernize their units will have their franchise revoked. PUV operators are given only until June 30, 2020 to comply with the Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program. Existing transport groups that have not yet adopted the PUVMP will lose their franchise, as some operators have already organized themselves into cooperatives and corporations and are in the process of modernizing their fleet. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Bench Bondo.
Up next, the Health Department is investigating 11 foreigners for possible nCoV infection. And Malacanang joins Filipino fans in mourning the death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
The Office of the President would like to share in the grief of the tragic, horrible death of one of the legendary greats in basketball, Kobe Bryant. We're saddened by his death as well as his daughter. We remember that he was a frequent visitor in the Philippines and was well loved by his fans. All of you have seen him on the hard court, and it was a sight to behold with his mastery of his craft. So we extend our deepest condolences to the family, to his friends, to his colleagues, to his loved ones, as well as the fans around the globe.
About 11 persons were placed under investigation for suspected infection of the novel coronavirus. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III on Monday said the 11 patients under investigation are of international nationalities, including American, Brazilian, Chinese, and German. The 11 presented symptoms with fever, cough, colds, some shortness of breath, and a travel history in Wuhan. The PUIs have been recorded in different hospitals in Muntinlupa City, Pasay City, Calibo in Aklan, Tacloban in Leyte, El Nido in Palawan, Cebu City, and Camiguin as part of self-protection against nCoV and similar viruses. The DOH chief urged the public to avoid contact with sick animals or spoiled animal products, particularly stray cats and dogs, rodents, birds, and bats. He also said that the consumption of raw or undercooked animal products should also be avoided. He also encouraged the public anew to practice frequent hand washing, avoid symptomatic individuals, practice proper coughing etiquette, consume enough water, and immediately seek for medical help when experiencing these symptoms. Malacanang is saddened by the death of NBA legend Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California on Monday. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo described Bryant, who has won 5 NBA championships with Los Angeles Lakers and 2 Olympic gold medals for U.S. men's basketball, as a master of his craft. Panelo also recalled how Bryant was a frequent visitor in the Philippines and was well-loved by his Filipino fans. Meanwhile, the Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League paid its tribute to the 41-year-old NBA legend on Monday. During the game between Muntinlupa and Caloocan at the Inares Center in Antipolo City, both teams conceded a 24-second violation each as their sign of respect to Bryant. The PBA, through a statement, said it is mourning the passage of a man who has touched the lives of millions. The 5-time NBA champion first flew to Manila in 1998, just 2 years after he debuted in the NBA. His last visit was in 2016, just months after his retirement. The Duty-Free Philippines Corporation reports that it continues to attract customers amid the scare over the 2019 novel coronavirus that originated from China. Without disclosing exact figures, DFPC Chief Vicente Angala said the state-owned corporation's sales increased by 15% in the first 3 weeks of January. While noting that it is still too early to comment on the NCOV's further effect on DFPC sales, Angala said he trusts the authorities in handling the situation. Recently, the Civil Aeronautics Board has suspended flights between Wuhan and the Philippines to contain the spread of the disease. The Department of Health earlier said there is no confirmed case of 2019 NCOV in the Philippines. Angala said the agency will continue its initiatives and 2020 projects to maintain its upward growth trajectory. For the first half of the year, he said the DFPC is opening a new outlet in Clark, Pampanga by March or April. A medical mission by a group from the United States opened on its 8th year to serve hundreds of residents in Bulacan. Joyce Cudis has the story.
Almost 600 Bulacanos availed of free medical and surgical services in a mission on Monday, initiated by the Philippine Medical Association Medical Mission Foundation in partnership with the provincial government of Bulacan. This is the 8th time that the foundation from the USA and the provincial government have partnered to provide free health services to the residents of Bulacan. Beneficiaries gathered at the Bulacan Capitol Gymnasium, where they are given free checkups and then prescribed and given medicines, relieving them of the need to go to private hospitals. The delegates were welcomed by the provincial officials headed by Governor Daniel Fernando and Vice Governor Wilhelmino C. Alvarado. Dr. Vicente Zata, president of PMA Medical Mission Foundation of Greater St. Louis, Missouri, said they are happy that they have been able to help others for the past 8 years. The governor expressed his gratitude to the association for their generous contribution of time and energy to the people of Bulacan. The 4-day free medical and surgical mission will run until January 30. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Joyce Cudis.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Malacanang said the scrapping of VFA is a studied response against the United States. The Justice Department is hoping to file charges against the so-called ninja cops this week. A woman who just gave birth in Surigao is appealing to CPP-NPA to release her husband. And Malacanang joins Filipino fans in mourning the death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, Look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day.